Welcome to the ChickenBytes podcast series, in which we unpack the issues currently facing the South African poultry industry. This morning, Tax Executive Charles de Wet joins us at ENS Africa. Charles is preparing the submission for the proposal to remove VAT from chicken in next year's zero-rated basket. The submission is being prepared on behalf of the South African Association for Meat Importers and Exporters, as well as the South African Poultry Association. Good morning, Charles, and welcome.
Hi, Jenny. Thanks very much. It's good to talk to you about chicken.
Charles, how do you anticipate the removal of VAT from chicken will impact the purchasing behavior of low-income households?
The objective must be that households will pay 15% less for the chicken products that qualify for the zero rating. I mean, what we have is a list that's included in the VAT Act of specific products that are zero rated. And I mean, the way that VAT works is that through the chain there should be no VAT cost. So the impact, is always felt by the final consumer. So when they go into a supermarket to buy chicken, I mean, if we get this right and we get the monitoring right, then it should cost them 15% less in the circumstances. So that should give them more spending power.
How do you foresee ensuring that the 15% savings will be passed on to consumers?
I mean, I think there are a couple of ways to do that. I mean, the chicken market is a big market, so there are competitive forces at play. And I think that there are enough players in the market that will make sure that benefit is passed on. So that has an impact on the marketplace in the circumstances, and will make sure that it is in fact passed on. But I mean, a critical component also is that we do some monitoring around that and make sure that monitoring is done properly and is credible in the circumstances. And I mean, there are already some sort of existing monitoring that happens. So the Competition Commission, already and for a few years now has published a report on basic food prices, and we would hope that one, I mean, currently I look at chicken across all products, and I think we could tweak that definition once we know exactly what the definition of the product is that is zero rated. So we think that there could be monitoring at that level. And then SA Stats also puts out a report around food prices, and that could also be used after the event, show that in fact the price that the consumer pays at the end of the day has in fact reduced by 15%, and it's not that it's been locked up somewhere else in the supply chain, either at kind of grow level or at supermarket level.
You've mentioned that removal of VAT from chicken is expected to boost the poultry industry, leading to increased tax revenues. Can you expand on that?
Well, I mean, from an economic perspective, once prices stabilize and prices come down, then volume kind of goes up in the circumstances. So economic principles would say that because of lower price, volumes will increase, and that will have an impact on the producers. There will be a higher demand for the products, a higher demand for volume, and that means that the producers could be more efficient in the circumstances, and would potentially achieve high level of income or profits as a result of that. I mean, the intention is not that any increase is achieved by the price differential, but just because one would be growing the industry, because it would be making a greater contribution to the South African economy.
How do you plan to address any potential concerns from Treasury regarding the projected revenue loss from this tax exemption?
I think that obviously, revenue loss is important and needs to be taken into account in getting to the final answer. When we looked at this in 2018, or sort of the last time that there was a program by National Treasury to look to extend the list of zero-rated products, that was at the time that the VAT rate was increased from 14% to 15%, and in sort of a 1% increase in VAT rate, equates to somewhere between 25 and 30 billion rand a year. So at a cost of 5 billion, or more likely 4 billion if you take out the the chicken that is used in the takeaway industry, etc., is the impact that it could have on National Treasury. And at the end of the day, we don't really think that that is a big number. If you compare it to the total VAT that was collected, so if you look at total tax collections for last fiscal year, that was 426 billion rand. So that's about 1.1%. So even at a level of 5 billion, it's 1.1% of the total VAT that is collected. If you look at the total tax collections, that last year was 1.7 billion, 5 billion on that is not even 0.3% of the total taxes that are collected. So, even at that level, it's quite a small percentage. I mean, also, if you look at the numbers in terms of the tax collections year to date, they're actually up quite nicely in comparison to prior years. So the revenue collection up to the end of August is 19% up on prior years. So that's a big number. So in essence, it's already been paid for, and it's not really so the cost is not going to make a blip on the national budget, because it's not. In reality, it's a relatively small number.
What do you expect the impact will be on the red meat industry?
I think that that's sort of, I mean, difficult to predict. I mean, we're dealing with households that are price sensitive at the end of the day. I mean, the intention would never be to have a negative impact on the red meat industry at all. I mean, I can't really imagine that there would, that the size of that industry would reduce as a result of that. I mean, people may for a short time choose slightly different products that they may buy, depending on what their price point is, and what their disposable income is. But I mean, it is a very competitive market, and people would want to maintain their market share. So I also don't anticipate that there will be a significant disruption to that market at all. It's one of the unintended consequences that National Treasury would need to take into account, because I mean, what you do have is a tax system that is sort of creating a level of preference because of the price point. But I mean, for the impact for them should be small as well.
What research has been conducted to support the argument for VAT-free chicken, and what were the key findings, if any?
That we're still busy with the submission, so that's an ongoing project, and we're trying to get that done as soon as possible. I think that the things that one needs to take into account around this, and it's almost starting at the point of what is the current list of zero-rated products, and sort of a question that nobody can answer at this particular point in time. But we're a meat producing country, and meat is a very important protein, and why meat was never included in the list back in 1993 when it was introduced, nobody knows. I mean, I think there's always been a sense from National Treasury and from SARS that what often happens when you create a distortion by introducing a zero-rated product is it's often the richer households that get advantaged by it, and not while the poorer households also get the advantage. the richer households do as well. Sort of recently, and I think this might have been the Minister of Finance, Trevor Manuel, who was talking at this conference, said that, brown bread was introduced as being zero rated. But in fact, it's health conscious people in rich households that eat brown bread. So in fact, that benefit was in the wrong households, and Treasury lost out as a result of that. So that may have been the reason that it wasn't introduced at that particular point in time. I also think that sort of preferences have changed. People's eating habits have changed from 1993, and that's the reason why the list also needs to be refreshed at this particular point in time. And what we have seen is the really important impact that proteins has on stunting, and the impact on people's lives and quality of lives. So those are the important things. I think that the argument is very much based on the fact that we need an additional protein. Chicken is a great protein in the circumstances. It's affordable as far as that's concerned, and will help people to have an additional disposable income, but also have sort of positive health benefits in the circumstances as well.
The submission is expected to be submitted to National Treasury mid-November. Assuming that timeline is kept, how long do you expect it may take for Treasury to respond to the proposal?
It's difficult to predict currently. When there have been no announcements by National Treasury after the President's opening of Parliament address, where he said that the list would be expanded. So there hasn't been a formal announcement in terms of exactly how that will go and who will take the decision. What we do know from the budgetary process is that typically tax announcements are made in the February budget. So that would be an appropriate time to make that. All the tax changes are announced there. The process from there on out is having made the sort of the policy announcements as far as that's concerned, that is then included in draft legislation and subsequently sort of final legislation. So one would hope that by getting the submission in now, that there would be an announcement by the minister in February that would give clarity in terms of whether they've made up their minds about a particular product at that stage, or at least the process in terms of getting that.
This is certainly something that we'll be following closely in the coming months, and it is in much anticipation of the nation as to what Treasury's decision will be, which we will find out in February. Until then, thank you so much for joining us today, Charles. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, and I do hope that we'll speak to you again. Good luck with the remainder of your submission.
It's a pleasure, and it's great to talk about it, and hopefully this is something that we can get done and have a more representative list at the end of the day.